The girl that was giving me the test, it was like she was still in training, so it was her first day really doing the tests. Like it wasn't on her own; she had a facilitator. So, they asked me if that was okay. I was like, oh yeah, like that's fine. I didn't think anything was going to be weird of it. After we did the test, she was just asking me, a few routine questions about my safe sex practices, and she told me it was reactive, and I just like kind of sat there and stared at her, and I was like, okay. So what do we do now?
When we go even deeper into the data and say among that youngest group of gay and bisexual men, where are we seeing the increases? And where we really are seeing them is in African American young gay men, where we see sort of steady numbers of increasing HIV infections over the past 5 years or so.
There's an extraordinarily high likelihood that a young black gay man in Atlanta will contract HIV by age 30.
I go to different clubs here in Atlanta with MSM, which being Men Seeking Men, in the African American community, also the Latino community. The club doesn't open really sometimes until 11:30 or 12. I go in and I prepare and I set up and isolate an area where they feel comfortable enough to disclose personal information with me. And I meet them where they are. So if, let's say, I get a young man who's about the age 19, one thing that I can assure myself is that a young man that's 19 is on Instagram. And that's my way in. So once I get that way in, I try to figure out some of his sexual practices or what he considers to be normal for sex practices. And then I pretty much hip him, for lack of better words, to what is safe.
So this is an idea that's been explored in several research studies now to actually try to understand what may be leading to that disparity in HIV infection that we're seeing among young black men, young black gay men. And in multiple studies now, what we see is when we look at just an individual's behavior, it doesn't explain why young black men should have a higher rate of HIV infection.
HIV risk between black and white gay men in Georgia and throughout the United States is not really correlated with risk behavior. It's much more related to things like having access to healthcare, having access to housing, and really the racial disparity in their sexual networks.
I have a very, 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 very high chance of getting HIV before I turn 35. Me, a young black person who's also queer, versus everyone else. It was honestly scary, And I think the first thing I asked myself was like, why me? Why am I like the token person, and why is this not affecting everyone else? Is that it's affecting my life?
I think the most contributing factor is lack of knowledge, not being aware. That's where I've come into play, where I try to go out into the community and let people know what the risks are. I can't really, like I said, put into words anything that would change someone's perspective. But what I can do is empathize with what you've been through, because if you've been through what I've been through, I know some of the things that I was subjected to. My mother and father both being addicted to crack cocaine. I've had to make certain sacrifices and certain decisions for a betterment of life that some people who've come from a different background wouldn't understand. So a lot of the decisions that are made by the youth is from a lack of information from the household.
Young black gay men in Atlanta are experiencing far more risk than just risk for HIV. So contextualizing HIV in the struggles experienced by a young black gay man in Atlanta is really important. And that means recognizing the risk of homelessness, recognizing the risk of, police violence, for example, incarceration. All the issues that we hear about that affect all Black men in the United States also affect Black gay men.
Because the thing that we need to consider is that people of color in this country does not have the same access to health care than people who are not a person of color. And we have to realize this for a second. So what are the chances that this person know that they are HIV positive? And what are the chances that this person knows how to take care of themselves and to seek help and to seek support and to find medical care that is not going to abuse them?
I think that it's our responsibility as adults in Georgia who make policy decisions to look at healthcare access disparities. Why are Black Georgians suffering from lack of healthcare access compared to white Georgians? Why are African American youth more likely to become homeless than white youth? It's very hard for me to come up with a strategy that will keep that young person safe, because all it takes is sex one time without a condom. I would much rather tell politicians, elected officials, give them the advice about HIV. Don't leave it in the hands of a 15-year-old who may be in the process of getting kicked out of his home for being gay to protect himself from HIV. We have the power to protect our young people. And frankly, there is no advice strong enough to protect a young Black gay man from HIV in Atlanta. It's too late for that. The people with the power need to make those decisions, and the advice I have is for them.
Well, I think one of the things that attributed to my position was my physical attributes. One thing that I found in the younger community, they lean to the understanding of people that they can relate to. And with me having as many tattoos as you guys see, I think that draws a point of interest. And once people come to me with the intentions of just inquiring about why I have the tattoos, that is a point of contact for me to basically adhere to what they need to know as far as the risk that they're taking.
I see the future of the fight against HIV in Atlanta in the hands of powerful, young, Black gay activists.
Another powerful thing that my grandmother told me is, if you can't change the people around you, change the people around you. One thing that I tell the young men that come to my group that I have every other Tuesday is, as a person in the LGBT community, we're always trying to get people to accept us. But when will we accept people? We have to accept that you won't agree with my sexual choices. You won't agree with my morale, but I have to accept that and move forward. We can only advocate and encourage and educate the people that want to receive it. If you don't, let's move forward, because the next person may be able to influence someone else.